right, so as I mentioned, getting a lot of tweets from yesterday's conversation regarding the big man, Joel Embiid, and that contract extension with the Philadelphia 76ers. And I think there's pressure on this team as a whole. And I don't think that, there's nothing wrong with saying that. There really isn't. We'll welcome in our Sixers insider, Ky Carlin. Of course, does a wonderful job covering the 76ers, editor, Sixers Wire for USA Today, and co-host of the Bell Ringer podcast. Give him a follow on Twitter at Ky_Carlin. He's kind enough to join us on the 1490 Sports Betting Radio hotlines. What's going on, pal?
What's going on, Rich? How are you?
I'm doing very well, and I appreciate a couple moments, as always. All right, we'll get right down to it. I mean, I guess people were thinking this is a big deal, right? I mean, it's the NBA. You get those max contracts, and I said this yesterday on air. I certainly thought Embiid earned it, but now you basically have to go out and lead the Philadelphia 76ers to a title. I want to get your thoughts first. Do you think that contract was in any way, shape, or form to justify the process?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Joel is a top 10 player in this league, in my opinion. And if not top 10, then he is definitely top 15. But you give contracts to those guys, those types of players, and keep them here with your team. You couldn't let Joel go. If you let Joel go, you start back at square one, and you might as well trade Tobias Harris, trade Ben, and build around Tyrese Maxey at that point. So, no, to me, it was just like, okay, we have a superstar. We're going to keep him here. Let's build. That's kind of how I saw it.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can look at the numbers. You can look at what he was able to do this season. And ultimately, you could have made the case that he was MVP. He led them. He is a franchise player. If anything, this move tells you, which we already knew, it's a foregone conclusion. This is Joel Embiid's team. I mean, that's first and foremost. And it's not even about Ben Simmons or whomever they might bring in or trade away or sign. At the end of the day, we're trying to build around this franchise cornerstone in the big man in Embiid. But I do believe that puts pressure now on the front office to surround him with the proper pieces, does it not?
Absolutely. I mean, Joel, you kind of look at it, the fact that he's signing it for 4 more years, he's going to be in Philadelphia, I think, for the 2026-27 season now, so you got him locked up. But now you've got, roughly 5 seasons or so to come up with a championship. Because I believe the last year the deal was a player option. So let's just say, he's heading into the final year of that contract, and he's like, I'm not picking up off this player option. I don't believe in what you guys are doing here anymore. Then all of a sudden, just everything you've built over the past couple of years just kind of wasted. So, in my opinion, you got to get Damian Lillard. I wouldn't settle for anything other than Damian Lillard. The thing is, though, he's not available right now. So at that point, you're going to bring Ben back. I know Adrian Wojnarowski reported that the Minnesota Timberwolves are a team that has been persistent on a deal to get it done with Simmons, but you would need a third team because there really isn't anybody on Minnesota who Philadelphia would be like, oh, yeah, we want to bring you in here to play with Joel. No. I can tell you right now they want Lillard. They want Lillard. They're not going to trade Ben for anybody other than Lillard or unless Bradley Beal becomes available. But you get the sense that they are waiting for Lillard. It's kind of obvious at this point. And I think even Derek Bodner from The Athletic reported that the Sixers' ultimate goal is to acquire Damian Lillard. So, you know what I'm saying? At this point, it's kind of looking like Ben's going to come back again next year and you try again. It's looking more and more likely that's going to happen because Lillard, the situation over there in Portland isn't changing anytime soon.
I think the only reason I would probably change my my thought process on Lillard, as you alluded to, again, you have to come up with a trade package, right? As you mentioned, it might have to do with a third team. You have to have a trade package in place. You have to have an idea if you're Morey, what am I willing to give up? And again, it just seems as though you're giving up a lot for him. Now, I think you can maybe do this potential. I was reading there's a Portland, Philly, Golden State possible swap. So you would send Lillard to the Sixers, Simmons to the Warriors, prospects and picks to the Blazers. I don't know. I don't believe that's a viable option at this moment. And I also, like you just said, Ky, I'm starting to believe that Ben Simmons is here next year, or at least to start a training camp. I mean, it just seems as though if you're trying to get so much back and these teams aren't willing to even return the call, or they're like, we like him, but we don't covet him that much, then you're going to be stuck with him. And I'm just wondering, if that's the case, do you worry about some chemistry issues? Let's go by the premise that they don't trade Simmons and he's here for training camp and the start of the season. Do you believe he can still mesh with Embiid after everything that transpired late in the season, especially in the playoffs in that Game 7 against the Hawks?
I mean, I'm not really sure anymore. I mean, I think Ben at this point kind of looks like a regular season player where, like he puts up big numbers in the regular season. He gets the triple-doubles. He's an elite defender and all that. But, the playoffs come around and, all of his warts get exposed. The fact that he can't shoot, or actually, I'm going to say he refuses to shoot. Because,
exactly.
I mean, like we've seen Ben shoot the ball, like in videos, and I've seen it in practice. We can shoot the ball.
Right.
He just refuses to do it. And so, his refusal to shoot the ball is obviously like a huge, huge wart that gets exposed every single time the playoffs roll around. He still can't make free throws. And, all of that is a huge deal in the playoffs. So, to me, at this point, the Sixers kind of look like a really good regular season team where they'll be a top 3, top 4 seed. They'll get everybody excited, but then the playoffs roll around, and Ben looks like the same player, and it's going to hold them back. So that's just kind of how I see the Ben and Joel thing right now. Unless Ben comes back next season and he has an epiphany and he decides to start shooting three-pointers and jump shots outside the paint. Like, you don't even need him to be pulling up for three like he's Steph Curry. Like, if you could just come up with even a mid-range shot, that changes everything. But he refuses to shoot. And, it's a huge wart come playoff time. So I feel like Ben and Joel coming back into next season, I feel like they're going to be a really good regular season team. Then the playoffs roll around and the warts are going to get exposed, and we're going to have the same conversation again next year.
Listen, I agree wholeheartedly. I really do. I mean, look, it's tougher now in the East, right? You still got to go through the Bucks, defending NBA champs. You got to go through the Nets. Think about this, right? If Durant's foot is a half a step back or a couple inches, maybe we're talking about the Nets going on to the finals and winning it. You have to go through the Hawks, who arrived a year early. The Knicks are getting better. Boston, Miami. I mean, look, I believe when you sign a contract like that Embiid did, to negotiate that and understanding dollar for dollar your worth and your talent speaks for yourselves. I think there's a little bit of a bullseye on the back. Now, I'm just wondering, though, and not a bad bullseye, but I'm wondering, when we always talk about pressure, if you trade Ben Simmons, you would think you're going to get back some great pieces. You mentioned maybe DL. If you don't, then it's essentially that 1-2 punch that really has only taken them so far. And I guess the fear is that you have Embiid, who's going to exhaust himself again and play his 38 minutes and average, 20, 29, 31, and 16, and then boom, you're bounced in round number 2 and 6. You're bounced in the Eastern Conference Finals in 6 or 7, and it's like all for naught. Like I believe that if Morey doesn't figure out a way to trade Simmons and get back good value and or surround Embiid with a little more depth, some more perimeter shooters, then it almost seems as though you're wasting this guy's prime.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned all the other teams in the Eastern Conference. I mean, New York brought in Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier, guys who can score the ball next to Julius Randle. Boston you figure Boston's going to be a little bit better next year, just even with pure health. And they brought in Al Horford and Dennis Schroeder to join Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and they re-signed Marcus Smart. Then you look at what Miami did, bringing in Kyle Lowry, P.J. Tucker, and Markieff Morris, and they brought back Victor Oladipo on a small deal. And then if Oladipo can come back healthy and that knee is okay, then all of a sudden, we're talking about the Heat again. And then you just mentioned the Milwaukee Bucks, the defending NBA champions, the Brooklyn Nets with that three-headed monster up there. And then Atlanta, So it's one of those things to where all of a sudden it kind of feels like this was such a wasted year for Philadelphia.
Agree.
Losing to the Hawks, because it seemed like if there was any year for them to break through and win that elusive championship, it would have been this year. The Milwaukee Bucks were able to do it. The Bucks were, if there was any year for the Bucks to get it done, it would have been this year, and they got it. It's really, I feel like in a couple of years we're going to be looking back at the 2020-21 season, and we're going to be like, you know what, that was the Sixers' best chance at winning a championship. Unless they go get Dame Lillard. If they get Dame Lillard, that opens up the championship window a little bit more because, Rich, in my opinion, if you put Damian Lillard and Joel Embiid on the same floor, the pick-and-roll opportunities between the two of them would be with Embiid being as dominant as he is, and Lillard's ability to stretch and knock down big shots in the go-to clutch, and being able to stretch a defense out to, almost the half-court line. That's a game changer. That changes a lot of different things for the Sixers on offense. And then also they still have Steph Curry bombing away from the wing as well. So I feel like if they get Lillard, then that opens up the window a little bit more. But as this team is currently constructed, the 2020-21 season, this was their best shot at winning a title.
Yeah, I mean, we said for years, right, prior to the Eagles winning a couple of years ago, their best shot was when they lost at home to Tampa Bay, and Barber's running the other way on the pick six. Jervicius is still being chased by Blaine Bishop. That was their window. Ultimately, they finally won. But you're right. I mean, when you look at the 76ers team, and you mentioned that pick and roll, reminds me of what Atlanta was able to do in the playoffs, and they did it to a T. I like the fact that the Sixers are taking care of Embiid. Okay, fine. That's all well and good. He's taken steps forward where you saw he was much more engaged. He played both sides or both ends of the floor. But look, I mean, if you can forget about Lillard right now, your wish list, who would you have to, or who would you want to surround him with if Lillard's off the board and they have to bring back Simmons?
Well, I mean, they brought back Danny Green, which in my opinion was a huge move. You couldn't let Danny Green go.
No, I agree.
I feel like if Green was out there against Atlanta, I feel like, maybe something else would have changed and it would have helped the Sixers move, maybe beat the Hawks. Like, who knows? But, bringing back Green was huge. Still have Steph Curry under contract for a couple more years. Tobias Harris, he had a terrific year under Doc. I thought Tobias was really good in the playoffs as well, except for Game 5 of the Hawks series, really. So, listen, this is still a really good team that's coming back. But, as I alluded to earlier, though, they have warts. And the warts, they're not going to get exposed in January, March, and April, or February, March, and April. They're going to get exposed in May and June, when the games matter the most. So you have to continue to kind of surround Joel with, they need another ball handler, which is why I bring up Lillard. And I'm telling you, that's the guy they want. That is the guy this team really, really, really wants. So the minute Lillard does become available, you can guarantee Daryl Morey's going to, call up the Blazers and just throw everything but the kitchen sink at them. Because, listen, everybody on this Sixers roster is tradable except for Joel. There's nobody on this roster that's untouchable except for Joel. Like, you want Maxey? Take him. Give me Lillard. You want Thibault? Go ahead. Give me Lillard. You want Tobias? Go ahead. Give me Lillard. So there's just going to be a lot that, they're going to be looking forward to, and they're going to remain as patient as possible when it comes to the Lillard situation.
Okay, so who would you be willing to give up right now on this 18th of August for Lillard? Give me Ky Carlin's Sixers package. Who goes? That's
tough. I would listen. I know people love the kid, and he's going to be really good. But I would give up Maxey, for sure. I would give up. I don't know if I give up Thibault and Simmons just because of the fact that if you lose Ben, you're gonna need somebody to guard, out there on the perimeter. So that's where Matisse would come in. But listen, if you want Thibault, you can take him too. You could probably twist my arm. I'm telling you, I would give up almost everybody on the Sixers roster outside of Joel for Lillard.
Okay, and you believe that, so you subtract those players that you just mentioned, you believe the 1-2 punch alone of just of Lillard and Embiid would be enough to compete with the Nets' big three, or Milwaukee and their two, Middleton and Giannis? You believe that?
Honestly, I fully wholeheartedly believe that. That's how I think of Damian Lillard.
No, you listen. You've been banging on that drum for a while now. I hear you. I don't know. I think the Bucks, and look, this is no disrespect to Middleton. I think the Bucks were that example, right? Maybe that exception to the rule where you don't need Batman and Robin. Look, Middleton's a hell of a player, don't get me wrong. But let's, come on. He's apples and oranges if you're trying to compare him to the caliber of Lillard. I'm just, and the reason I ask you this is because part of me is hearing no matter what they do, if they have to bring back Simmons, it's almost insanity. You're doing the same thing over and over with a different result. And then the other part of me is hearing, well, wait a second, though. If by some grace of God you can get Damian Lillard and you can package a bunch of players, you're ultimately confident that him and Embiid can make this team can make that deep run and perhaps get into the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I think that team could do it. Like, let's just say you keep Steph Curry and you keep Tobias out of the deal, right? So let's just say they do, and then you're going down the court with Damian Lillard leading that break instead of Ben Simmons. Like, I think highly of Ben Simmons too. I think he's a terrific player, but obviously, his work just they continue to get close to playoffs. And I'm sorry, go ahead. Just listen. I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm getting fired up because he doesn't want to shoot. He doesn't. At least you have a player on any night in Lillard that can put up 28, 30. The guy averages 24 for his career. He averaged 30 a couple of seasons ago. So for a fact, give me the ball. I want the ball. Ben Simmons doesn't want the ball. Right, exactly. That's exactly it. And that is such a huge game changer, especially come playoff time. Like, in the playoffs, Damian Lillard's not passing up in open layups the way Ben Simmons is. As he did Game 7. Like, let's be real. So, I mean, at the end of the day, Lillard is a clear upgrade.
Right.
And, who knows, maybe you trade Ben and he does go off and Ben does, discover he ends up having his epiphany and all of a sudden he starts shooting the ball. But at this moment in time, there's no way to really tell that that's going to happen. So I'm telling you, like, this is just how highly I think of Lillard. Like, Lillard and Joel, that 1-2 punch, and then you got Tobias and Steph Curry on the wings. I feel like it would be extremely tough to beat Philadelphia, no matter how much talent, Brooklyn has up there. Because as talented as Brooklyn is, they still are soft in the paint. Joel will destroy DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin, at this stage of their careers and everything. So, like, that's just kind of how I really see everything when it comes to the Lillard and Embiid pairing.
Listen, before I let you get out of here, I know with Summer League and everything in the books and the Sixers, as you just posted on Sixers Wire, starting to fill out the rest of the roster, training camp getting set to begin in about a month or so. Are there a couple of names that you would say, you know what, these guys got a legit shot here to make the squad and contribute?
What do you mean, like the two-way guys or something?
Yeah, let's go with the two-way guys, yeah.
Okay. Well, they have Aaron Henry on a two-way contract, the kid out of Michigan State. He went undrafted. And then they just, Shams out of, from the Athletic, tweeted out today that the Sixers are going to sign Grant Riller to the other two-way spot. Riller spent his rookie season with the Charlotte Hornets last year.
Right.
So Henry's definitely, he's ticketed for Delaware. I don't know if we're really going to see Henry too much this year for Philadelphia outside of garbage time and I guess the preseason. Riller's kind of the same. I think Riller has a chance to be a really good ball handler in this league. I think you see the potential there, but he still needs more development. So there's a chance that Riller will spend some time in the G League as well with the Blue Coats. Now you got a guy like Charles Bassey, who they picked at 53, and I mean Bassey, in my opinion, Rich could maybe make a dent in the rotation. Not a dent. Let me take that back. Maybe show some signs that he could be in the rotation sooner rather than later. I think he's a skilled big who can step out and shoot the three. But then again, you still got Paul Reed there. They just signed Andre Drummond to back up Joel. So Like who really knows? I mean, I really feel like a lot of these guys at the end of the bench are just really more developmental guys who have a chance to maybe play on this team in the future, maybe a season or two. But at this moment in time, the Sixers are still contending for a championship, and you can't really rely on end of the bench guys right now. Especially when you have championship dreams, you kind of need win now players. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens. But I mean, I do like Riller, I do like Bassey, but just not right now.
Yeah, and you also have to consider, right, Doc Rivers, like how many players how deep are we going to roll, right? How deep are we going to go? We're going to go 6, we're going to go 7, we're going to give some guys off the bench here, say when they had Howard to give Embiid a little bit of a blow, to give him some rest and take off some of the minutes, and then Drummond and whatnot. So you're right. I mean, a lot of these guys, if they're just, I don't want to say experimental players, or just kind of like players that they want to develop, that's all well and good. But you almost, I don't know, man. I'm telling you, I feel like we're going to have this conversation again in another 6 months, where it's insanity. And the reason I bring it up is because I was such a anti-process and the tanking. I hated it. I never understood it. But then I've learned to accept it, because I know that's where we're headed with sports, especially in the NBA. And we've seen it to some extent in baseball here and there. Not so much, I think, the NFL, because I think if you're just lackadaisical, players get hurt and whatnot. And I get on the pro process people who still believe that, well, it's not complete yet. Well, how much longer? You know what I'm saying? Like, how much longer do you have to keep having this conversation? And the only way a guy like me is going to shut up with this guy is if they go out and win a championship.
No, believe me, I understand it. I mean, I hated the process too, but it was just like, I also understood why it was happening, because, as you mentioned, like, that's just kind of how sports are going right now. I mean, if you looked at the Detroit Pistons this year, they were losing on a consistent basis. They were getting blown out in a lot of these games. I mean, in the early part of the season, they were competitive, but they were losing a lot of these games, and they ended up with the number 1 pick, and they were able to grab Cade Cunningham. And now the Pistons all of a sudden have a franchise guy they can build around. So the same thing with the Sixers in the past. They got 2 of them really, and at the time they thought they had 2. Now it's like more than, now it's really just 1. But with Joel and Ben Simmons. But it is what it is at the end of the day. Like, if you really want to justify all that losing, you do have to be able to go out there and win a championship. And so I completely understand like where people are coming from with that. It's unfortunate they haven't been able to get over the hump just yet.
All right, pal. Great stuff as always. Keep up the good work. And for everyone out there, if you want to get your Sixers fill, follow Ky on Twitter at Ky_Carlin, covering the 76ers, editor for Sixers Wire for USA Today, co-host of the Bell Ringer podcast, and that's SixersWire.usatoday.com. Always appreciate it. I have a feeling, though, in another 3 or so weeks when we talk, we're going to talk about Ben Simmons, another season with the Sixers.
We probably will at this point, Rich. It's kind of looking that way. Yeah. Thank you for having me on, my man. I appreciate you a lot.
Got it. All right. Be well, Ky. There you have it. All right. Good stuff as always. Our guy, Ky Carlin. Quick time out. I know we ran a little late, but he always gives us some great information. Quick time out.